I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, spilling the story of how my perfect little world came crashing down. My wife Lisa and I had been together for 8 years. We met in college, hit it off right away, and I honestly thought we were solid. She was smart, funny, a little bitchy sometimes, but in that charming way. We had a pretty normal life, good jobs, a nice home, friends, the usual, or so I thought. From the outside, everything looked fine. But in the last few months, I started noticing weird things. She'd come home later than usual, claim she was working late or out with friends, but I'd catch her eyeing her phone like she was hiding something. She was always quick to dismiss my questions, brushing me off with some excuse about how I was paranoid or overthinking. She'd even get bitchy when I pressed her. "God, relax, it's nothing." She'd snap. That should have been my warning, honestly, but I didn't want to believe it. Then 2 weeks ago, things got really strange. I was scrolling through her social media and saw pictures of her with someone I didn't recognize. At first, I just thought, okay, maybe she's friends with this guy, whatever. But then I noticed a picture from some event. She was all over him, and the caption was something about a great night and a tag with his name. The guy was some podcast host I'd never even heard of, Tommy. He's pretty popular, does these live recordings, and women go crazy for him online. I didn't think much of it at first, just annoyed she was out with some guy when she was supposed to be working or at a book club or whatever she said. But then I looked closer. The photos weren't just casual. They looked intimate, him holding her, her leaning into him. And the comments, God, the comments. Fans tagging both of them, praising her, saying how gorgeous she looked with him. One girl even posted a photo of them together, captioned "the best kept secret." That's when I felt it, this deep, sinking ache in my stomach. I just knew that she was lying and cheating on me. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trust, lying right in my face, with some podcast guy I'd never really disliked but never loved either. I kept my cool that night, barely slept, just stared at my phone, trying to process what I'd seen. I felt betrayed, like I'd been punched in the gut. Deep down, I knew I had to confront her. I didn't want to believe the worst, but somehow I already knew. The signs were there, I just didn't want to see it. It's strange how denial works, how you convince yourself everything is fine until it's too late. I kept thinking about all those little things, her secretive phone habits, her dismissive attitude, the way she'd avoid certain questions. The next morning, I woke up early and decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I made a plan. I kept my voice calm, even though inside I was boiling with rage. I confronted her that afternoon. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looking all innocent, or at least trying to look innocent. I sat down across from her, looked her in the eyes, and told her I knew everything. I told her about the pictures, the comments, the timeline I'd figured out. Her face, oh man, her face twisted into this snarl. She spat out some stupid excuse. "It's just a stupid thing, it doesn't mean anything," she said. "It's not what you think." I felt my blood boil. I asked her if she was sleeping with him, and she laughed, this bitter, bitchy laugh, and said, "You're crazy, I don't even like that guy. It's just sex, God, get over it." That was her line, just sex. Like that makes it okay. Like I should just accept that she's been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back with some guy she doesn't even care about. I wanted to scream, but I held myself back. Instead, I told her I needed time to think, that I was done with the lies. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I felt angry, hurt, and honestly a little lost. I didn't want to believe she's been cheating for months, lying every day. How long has this been going on? Was I blind or just stupid? All I could think about was how she's always been bitchy when she doesn't get her way, how she manipulates situations to her advantage, and now I see that it's just her way of hiding what she's been doing. I felt like I was losing myself, and I knew I had to do something. I didn't want to stay with someone who would betray me like this, but part of me still couldn't believe she'd do it outright, especially with some guy who's famous for being charming and popular. So that's where I am now, standing at the crossroads, trying to figure out whether I should forgive her, fight for us, or just cut my losses. I don't have all the answers yet, but I know this. My trust is shattered, and I don't know if I can rebuild it. After that confrontation, everything changed. Honestly, I thought telling her I knew would make her defensive, maybe even admit to something, but Lisa just sat there, acting like I was crazy. She kept denying everything, throwing out the usual bullshit about how I'm paranoid and insecure. She called me possessive and overreacting, then started crying like I just accused her of murder or something equally heinous. I didn't believe her, not really. The way she acted, so dismissive, so bitchy, confirmed my suspicions even more. I couldn't just let it go. I needed to see if there was any truth in her lies. I decided to dig deeper to find the evidence that would make her crack. Over the next few days, I started watching her more closely. I checked her social media, her emails, her texts. Nothing obvious at first, but I noticed her phone was constantly in her hand, always hiding it when she thought I wasn't looking. That alone told me she knew she was guilty of something and was trying to cover it up. Then one evening she went out with her girlfriends, for a girls' night, she said. I decided to follow her just for shits and giggles. I didn't plan to do anything, just wanted to see where she was going. She headed to a trendy little bar downtown, one I've never been to, with a reputation for being a hookup spot. I parked a few blocks away and watched her walk in. She was dressed hot, tight jeans, some revealing top, definitely trying to impress someone. I saw her scan the room and then sit with a guy at a corner table. It was him, Tommy, the podcast guy. My stomach dropped. I watched them laughing, leaning close, touching each other. They looked so familiar, so intimate. And the way she was flirting, touching his arm, giggling that fake, bitchy laugh she always uses when she's feeling superior, I knew she was cheating. I kept my distance, heart pounding, trying to process the flood of emotions. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool for years. That night I went home angry but also somewhat numb. I knew I had to take action. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The next day I started planning. I wanted to catch her in the act, confront her with undeniable proof, then decide what I was really going to do. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. All these little lies, the sneaking around, the secret texts, they added up to something much worse than I initially thought. I worked up the nerve to check her phone when she left it unattended. I found texts from Tommy, flirty, suggestive, even a few explicit messages. It was clear they'd been talking for a while. My hands trembled as I scrolled through, feeling so many conflicting things: anger, sadness, a strange sense of betrayal I'd never experienced before. I also found a photo she had sent him, a selfie, half naked, with some caption about missing you and can't wait to see you again. That was the final nail. I felt like I'd been punched again, only this time it was worse because I'd uncovered the truth myself. All those nights I thought she was working late or out with friends, she was with him, the podcast guy. Someone I'd never even hated, just didn't care much about. Now I saw her for what she really was, a liar and a cheat. I decided I needed to confront her again, this time more prepared. I set a trap. I told her I was going out to meet some friends, but I stayed home and kept her under surveillance. When she returned that evening, I was waiting in the living room, calm but furious. I didn't need to yell, my eyes said everything. I just held up her phone, turned on the screen, and showed her the messages. Her face went pale. She stammered, tried to deny it, but I cut her off. "Why, Lisa? Why did you do this?" I asked, my voice cold and steady. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent. "It's not what it looks like," she said. "It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. Tommy's just a guy I talk to sometimes. You're overreacting." That's when I knew I'd hit the point where there was no turning back. I realized she was a master manipulator, a woman who could lie through her teeth and still look you in the eyes. That fake sympathy, that I'm the victim attitude, it was all part of her game. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I felt my fists clench, my chest tighten. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I kept my composure. I knew I had to be smart about this. The emotional roller coaster didn't stop there. I went from furious to devastated within moments. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut and kicked while I was down. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face so effortlessly? I'd trusted her for years, built my life around her, and now I found out she'd been betraying me for months. I didn't know whether to cry, punch something, or just walk out and never look back. I was overwhelmed with feelings I couldn't quite process, but one thing was clear: I couldn't stay with someone who didn't respect me enough to tell the truth. I told her to leave, just like that. I couldn't stomach her anymore. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was drowning. I knew at that moment my life had changed forever. I was angry, hurt, and ready to do whatever it took to get my head straight. I was hurt the most by her bitchy attitude, like she thought she was entitled to cheat and lie because she was special. Well, she is. Not anymore. Not after this. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat much. I kept replaying everything she said, everything she did, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. Honestly, I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly in the chest, and every punch was a reminder of her betrayal. I kept thinking about all those nights I'd come home, feeling like something was off but never quite catching her in the act. She was so good at hiding her tracks, so bitchy and manipulative, I doubted I'd ever really seen the full picture until now. I started to realize that Lisa had always been like this. She's the kind of woman who's bitchy just for the sake of it, always twisting things around to her advantage. She's the queen of gaslighting, the type who'd tell you she done nothing wrong even when you catch her red-handed. I've seen it before, but I never thought she'd push it this far. Now I'm left with nothing but this hollow feeling, knowing I gave her years of my life, and she repaid me with secrecy and lies. I knew I had to get some space, clear my head. I decided to do some digging on Tommy, the podcast host she was cheating with. I hadn't looked too deep into him initially, just enough to see the pictures and get mad. But I wanted to understand who this guy was. Turns out, Tommy's famous for being charming, confident, and a bit of a womanizer. Women drool over him online, and his reputation for hooking up with fans is pretty well known. It's no surprise Lisa was drawn to that. She's always been into guys who seem confident and popular, her way of feeling superior, I guess. I also dug into her social media activity that week. She'd been posting some vague, bitchy comments about fake friends and people who aren't worth your time, which I now took as her trying to cover her tracks. She was trying to act like she was the innocent victim, the betrayed wife hurt by her so-called friends. That's her typical game. She blames others when she gets caught, tries to turn it around so she's the one suffering. It's classic Lisa. But the real shocker came when I found out she'd been planning to see Tommy again. There were messages from her talking about how she couldn't wait to see him in person and have some real fun. That's when I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. It had been going on for a while. I felt sick. It wasn't just the betrayal of cheating. It was the betrayal of everything I thought our relationship was built on: trust, honesty, loyalty. And Lisa, that bitch, lying through her teeth every step of the way. She had me fooled, thinking she was this strong woman, but underneath, she was just a manipulative, selfish cheat. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with more evidence, more resolve. I decided I wasn't going to just let it slide. I wanted to hear her lie her way out of it again, see what she'd say. I led her to believe I was still clueless, just waiting for the right moment. I texted her pretending I was still just a little suspicious, asking where she was, what she was doing. She immediately started to deny everything, throwing in the usual "you're crazy, it's just sex. I don't even like him that much." That's her favorite line, like she's trying to downplay it, make it sound like nothing serious, like I should just accept that she's a cheat. But I had enough. I told her I knew she was lying about everything. I played her messages, showed her the proof I'd found. Her face cooled down in an instant, that bitchy smirk fading into something colder, more calculated. She tried to deny it again, but her words were weak, her excuses pathetic. She said she was just lonely, that she didn't mean for it to get out of hand. Yeah, right, just lonely, huh? That's her excuse for sleeping with some guy she barely knows and lying to my face for months. I felt this mix of rage and despair. Rage because I'd been played for a fool, and despair because I still loved her. Deep down, I wanted to believe there was some way this could be fixed. But the trust was gone. She shattered it like glass. I looked at her and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. She was this bitchy, manipulative woman who'd rather lie and cheat than face her own mistakes. That night, I told her to leave for good this time. She argued a little, threw around some more bullshit about how it didn't mean anything. We're still okay, and she's sorry. Sorry doesn't fix all the damage she caused. Sorry doesn't erase those explicit messages or the photos she sent or the way she threw our marriage away to chase some fame-hungry guy. I told her she was free to go and I'd figure out what was next. Honestly, part of me wanted to beg her to stay to fix it, but deep down I knew I couldn't. Not after all this. Now I'm alone in this house, surrounded by memories I want to forget. Every time I look at her side of the bed, I feel empty. Every time I see her bitchy smirk in my mind, I get more angry. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her manipulation. And I wonder what's next. Can I ever trust again? Or am I doomed to walk around with a scar that will never heal? It's hard to imagine moving forward when everything I believed in just got shattered. But I know one thing: I won't be a fool again. Never. The days that followed felt like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I staggered through my routine, trying to keep it together for work, for friends, for myself. But inside, I was a mess. Every time I sat alone, I replayed that confrontation in my mind, every lie she told, every sneaky message I found. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her manipulative ways, they all made sense now. She's always been good at twisting things to her advantage, always made herself the victim even when she was the one causing the damage. I couldn't shake the feeling of being foolish for trusting her so blindly. For the longest time I believed her words, her fake apologies, her "I love yous." Now looking back, I see how she was always one step ahead, hiding her true self, lying through her teeth. That realization hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I started wondering how many other lies I'd missed, how many times she'd manipulated situations just to get her way. My anger simmered beneath the surface. Every time I thought about her bitchy smirk, it made me want to scream. I was furious that she'd thrown away everything we had for some fleeting excitement with Tommy, the podcaster she'd always flirted with. Honestly, I couldn't understand how she could be so bitchy about everything. About me, about her friends, about life itself, and then turn around and sleep with some guy she barely knew. It was like she enjoyed being the victim, the one who always manipulated the truth to her favor. That bitchy attitude she had, it was her armor, her weapon, and I finally saw it for what it was. I needed to get some perspective. I started doing a lot of thinking, trying to process what I wanted from here on out. Part of me still loved her, or at least I thought I did, but that love was now tinged with bitterness. How could I trust her again after all this? I knew I had to make a decision, but I wasn't in any rush. I wanted clarity, something concrete to hold on to before I made any moves. One thing I decided was that I couldn't stay in this house with her anymore. Every corner, every piece of furniture reminded me of what she'd done. So I cleaned out her side of the closet, packed her things in a black bag, and told her she needed to leave. She argued, of course, throwing her bitchy attitude around, trying to guilt me into letting her stay. She told me I was overreacting, that I was being crazy and possessive. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate me again. I told her I'd had enough, and if she didn't leave peacefully, I'd call the cops. She left that night, throwing some tantrum about how I was throwing her away and how it's not her fault. Yeah, right. All her bitchiness, her manipulations, everything I'd learned about her made that clear. She's the kind of woman who'll lie, cheat, and then blame everyone else when she gets caught. That bitchy attitude she always had, acting like she's better than everyone, like she's the victim, was just her way of hiding her flaws. After she left, I sat alone in the house. It was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own thoughts way too clearly. I felt a strange mixture of relief and despair. Relief that I finally took control, that I stood up for myself. But despair because I'd lost what I thought was forever: my wife, my partner, the woman I trusted. And worst of all, I couldn't help but feel like the fool for not seeing her true nature sooner. That night I stayed up until dawn thinking about everything. I kept asking myself, did I miss all the warning signs? Was I blind to her bitchy, manipulative side all these years? Honestly, I think I was. She's always been the type to play the victim, to twist situations to her advantage. All I ever wanted was an honest, loyal wife. But instead, I got a woman who would cheat, lie, and manipulate her way out of every problem. I started to realize that I needed to rebuild my life from scratch. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. I needed to focus on myself, figure out what I wanted for the future. She's a bitch, but I refuse to be her fool anymore. I've learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. From now on, I'm going to be more cautious, less trusting of the bitchy, manipulative women out there who think they can get away with everything. I want real honesty, real loyalty, and if I don't get it, I'm better off alone. So here I am trying to piece myself back together. It's not easy. Every time I see her bitchy smirk in my mind, I get angry all over again. But I know I'll survive. I have to. Because if I don't, her bitchy manipulations will win, and I refuse to let that happen. I've learned my lesson. I won't be a fool again. It's been a couple of weeks since Lisa left, and honestly, I've never felt so alone but also strangely more myself than I have in years. The house is quiet, too quiet sometimes, and I catch myself thinking about her bitchy attitude, how she'd always twist things to make herself look innocent while she was secretly sneaking around. The truth is, I should have seen it coming. She's always been that way, sharp-tongued, manipulative, the queen of turning the tables on anyone who calls her out. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and I guess that blinded me to the bitchy side she kept hidden. Now, I realize I was blind to a lot of her bullshit. The way she'd act all innocent and then flip the script when she was caught in a lie. Her bitchy attitude was her armor, and she wore it so well that I never saw how toxic she truly was. That manipulative, bitchy streak she's got, she uses it to get her way, to make herself look like the victim, no matter what damage she causes behind the scenes. I think I only saw the surface of it all, never the depths of her bitchiness until I uncovered the truth. While she was here, I kept thinking about all the moments I ignored, all the little things that now seem so obvious. The secretive texting, the bitchy comments when I confronted her, the way she'd dismiss everything I said. She's always been good at gaslighting, twisting reality, turning any problem back on me so she could stay in control. That bitchy attitude, her way of asserting dominance, was always there, hiding just beneath the surface, and I was too blind or too in love to see it. Now I see it clearly. She was never really on my side. She was just playing me, pretending to be the perfect wife, while behind my back she was doing who knows what with Tommy. I've been trying to piece my life back together, but it's hard. Every day I find myself asking how I missed the signs. How did I let her get away with lying, cheating, and being such a bitch? Honestly, I think I wanted to see the best in her, wanted to believe she was capable of genuine love and loyalty. But I was wrong, and that realization hurts more than anything. Her bitchy attitude, her manipulations, they're what kept her in control, what made her feel superior. She thrived on that power, and I was just too blind to see it. I've decided I need a clean break. I've been talking to a lawyer, gathering everything I need to start over. I want her out of my life for good. I don't want to look at her bitchy smirk, her manipulative words, or even think about the fake person she pretended to be. I want to rebuild my trust in myself and learn not to fall for someone who's just out to use me. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. Trust is fragile, and if you're not careful, it can be shattered in an instant. Honestly, part of me still feels anger. Not just anger at her, but anger at myself for being so stupid for so long. I think I kept making excuses for her bitchy attitude because I loved her. I thought she'd change, that her manipulative streak was just a phase. But now I know better. Some people are just like that, bitchy, manipulative, completely self-absorbed. And I refuse to be the fool anymore. I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on what I truly want. Do I want to stay single? Do I want to try to trust someone again someday? Honestly, I don't have answers yet. All I know is I need to focus on myself, on healing. I want to be someone who recognizes the bitchy, manipulative traits early on and walks away before I get hurt again. Because I've learned that the hard way, trusting a bitchy woman like Lisa was the biggest mistake of my life. And I won't let her or anyone like her do that to me again. So I'm taking it slow. I'm rebuilding my life. I've blocked her from all social media, changed my phone number, and cut out all the toxic bullshit she brought into my world. It's not easy, but I know it's necessary. I want to be better, smarter, more cautious. She's gone, and honestly, I feel a strange sense of relief, like a weight has been lifted. I still feel angry about her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, but I'm starting to see how much she was holding me back. Now I'm focused on moving forward, on finding someone who actually respects me, not a woman who's just out for her own selfish gains. In the end, I've learned that trust, once broken, is hard to repair. But I've also learned that I don't need that kind of toxicity in my life. I'll never let a bitchy, manipulative woman like Lisa get the chance to do this to me again. And maybe someday I'll find someone worth trusting again. Until then, I'll keep working on myself, making sure I don't fall for another Lisa, a manipulative, bitchy woman who only cares about herself. That's the lesson I'll carry with me from now on. It's been a month since Lisa moved out, and honestly, I've never felt more like myself. The house is still empty, but it feels different now, less like a prison and more like a fresh start. I spend my days working, hitting the gym, and reconnecting with friends I'd neglected for the sake of my perfect marriage. The shock of betrayal still lingers, but it's getting replaced with a sense of clarity I never had before. I finally see her for what she truly was, a manipulative, bitchy woman who thought she was above consequences. Looking back, I realize how much I let her control me, how much her bitchy attitude and constant gaslighting kept me in the dark for so long. I was so blinded by love that I overlooked the signs, her dismissiveness, her lies, her manipulations, and I kept telling myself it was all just a rough patch, that she'd come around. Turns out she was just playing a game I never fully understood until it was too late. That bitchy side of her, her need to always be right, her cutthroat attitude, was the real Lisa hiding behind a mask of charm and wit. Now I'm different. I've learned that trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I also learned that I don't need that kind of toxicity in my life. I refuse to be a fool again. I've cut off all ties with her, blocked her number, unfollowed her on social media, erased every trace of her from my life. I see clearly now. Some people are just toxic, and no matter how much you love them, they'll hurt you if you let them. Her bitchy attitude, her manipulations, they won't define me anymore. I've come to accept that moving on means accepting the pain, the anger, and the loss, but also embracing the chance to rebuild. I still get moments where I feel a sharp sting of betrayal, but those moments are becoming less frequent. What I won't forget, though, is the lesson she taught me. Never ignore the signs of a manipulative woman who hides her bitchy attitude behind fake smiles and clever lies. She's a perfect example of how some women can be charming on the surface but utterly toxic underneath. What's next for me? Honestly, I don't know. I'm not rushing into anything. Right now, I just want to focus on healing, learning to trust again, but smarter this time. I want to find someone who's genuine, kind, and honest, someone who doesn't hide a bitchy attitude behind a fake smile. I deserve that much, at least. For now, I'll keep working on myself, making sure I don't fall for another Lisa, another manipulative woman who thinks she can get away with anything. This experience has been brutal, but I see it as a wake-up call. I won't let her or anyone like her manipulate me again. I've grown stronger because of it, more cautious, more aware. And honestly, I feel like I've been reborn from the ashes of that relationship. The pain of betrayal still hurts, but it's also made me realize what I want and what I won't tolerate anymore. So, if there's one thing I want to leave here, it's this. Never ignore the bitchy attitude, the manipulations, or the signs of a woman who's only out for herself. Protect yourself. Trust your gut. And don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you, because in the end, your happiness and sanity are what matter most. I'm finally doing that now, and it feels damn good.